What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going into the changes that I want to see implemented to Metal Gear Solid Delta. But before we get into all that, I do want to say a quick thank you to you guys who have been showing support by liking, commenting, and subscribing. All that stuff really does help me out. For those of you guys who are not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. I'm promising at least one Metal Gear video a week, if not more. The best way to stay up to date is by subscribing. Now on to this video. First change I want to see shouldn't be too much of a surprise to any of you guys, and I don't think it's probably the least controversial, and that is to modernize and update the controls. I love Snake Eater. I love the way it controls, but I've been playing that game for ages now, and someone who's a newer player or someone who hasn't played as much as I have will definitely struggle with the controls. So the way to do this, the best way to do this in my opinion, is to take inspiration from two other Metal Gear games, the first being Metal Gear Solid 4, and what I want to see implemented from Metal Gear Solid 4 is actually the way that Snake controls and moves. Snake is very quick relative to other things around him, including guards, but he's also not, like the Flash essentially, like Venom Snake is in the Phantom Pain. Venom Snake runs way too fast, and if they made Naked Snake or Big Boss run the same way in Snake Eater in Delta, it wouldn't work. So taking the slower, fluid movement of Metal Gear Solid 4, and then also combining that with the fluid, snappy, responsive, modernized aiming in the Phantom Pain is the best way to do that. And following in that same train of thought, taking inspiration from the Phantom Pain, I do want to see them keep the L2, R2 inventory item system and tether that to the D-pad like they did in the Phantom Pain. I think that's the right way to do it. There's no interruptions in gameplay like there are in Snake Eater. You can sneak around, you can be crouch walking, you can be diving or even aiming and change your weapons and items seamlessly, quickly, without interruption. That is definitely the way to do it, and I do think they should keep that. If they want to add legacy controls for us boomers, they can do that, but the default standard way to shoot and aim in that game should be from Phantom Pain, essentially. Going along with that even more, I do think they should include more movement abilities. So for those of you guys that don't know, you can't actually crouch walk. You cannot crouch walk in Snake Eater. But they added that in the, I don't know if it's a remake. I guess it's a remake for the 3DS, funnily enough. You can actually crouch walk in Metal Gear Solid 3D. So keeping that from that game would be huge. It's just another way, another standard thing that people expect in third-person games especially, right, nowadays, is being able to crouch, sneak around that way. So keeping the crouch walking and also giving us an option to roll like we can in Snake Eater. Rolling around is one of the main ways to avoid detection and just another way to traverse. But I would like to see, just personally, the dive added as well. The dive that you can do in Ground Zeroes or the Phantom Pain or even Metal Gear Survive. The way they can implement that is if you press X once quickly, it's a roll. If you hold on to it, if you press it twice and hold on to it, maybe it's a dive. Something like that could work. And the last thing I want to see that goes along with modernizing the controls is an update to CQC mechanics. I love the CQC in Snake Eater, but it is kind of cumbersome even for me. So I can't imagine how it would feel to a new player. Taking, again, inspiration from either MGS4 and its really in-depth, option-filled CQC mechanics. There's a lot of different ways you can CQC hold someone or slam them to the ground into a hold-up, or even just taking something like the Phantom Pain CQC system that's really fluid and fast. We definitely need to see an update to the CQC in Snake Eater. So that's the first thing, you guys, is modernizing the controls. The second thing I want to see is more of a focus on the survival aspects of the game. I don't know if Kojima's ever stated this publicly in any interviews or anything, but I do think he set out to make one of, the most early survival games. And we have so many of them now. Even something like Minecraft is considered a survival game, right? Just something that introduces or uses the thirst, hunger, stamina meter. Something where if you have some sort of injury, you have to patch yourself up in real time with resources that you find littered around a map, right? We have games like that nowadays, and they can definitely take inspiration from them. So what does that entail? What am I talking about exactly? Well, the first thing I want to see is to make animals and the environments that we're traversing much more dangerous. So there are a lot of animals in Snake Eater, right? Let's just take a crocodile, for example. Crocodiles are very slow moving. There's never any moment where they take off running, and crocodiles in real life can exceed, I think, speeds of 30 miles per hour or something crazy like that, right? So the ones in Snake Eater are not that fast. The only time they're any real threat is if you're near quicksand and they tail whip you into the quicksand, or if they're swimming near you, and I'm talking like you have to be in their physical model in the game for them to do their death roll and then, you know, kill you or injure you. Any other scenario, they're not doing much to you. And that goes, the same thing goes for snakes. The same thing goes for bugs, or, you know, something like a scorpion, for example. If it stings you, you do get poisoned. You are afflicted by poison, but poison doesn't do anything. All it does is maybe like tick your stamina and your health a little bit, like a tiny bit, where it's almost insignificant. You can just wait it out and cure yourself that way. So I do want to see animals be more of a presence, more of a danger, more of a threat to us, to Snake. Going along with that as well are the traps and the snares. There are various maps, like for example, where you fight the fear, that are littered with traps and snares and all sorts of things, but they're not very dangerous. There's one that snatches you up from your ankle and hangs you from a tree. All you have to do is press triangle or the action button on your controller, and Snake frees himself with no sort of repercussion or ramifications for getting caught. So stuff like that can be enhanced. I want to see stuff like if you're discovered and you're shot in the arm or you're shot in the leg, for example, you can't sprint at full speed. You can't move at full speed. Maybe you can't crouch walk or go fully prone, right? If you're poisoned, I want to see more of a ramification for that. Maybe you can't ingest things until you've cleared your poison. And the way that you clear that stuff traditionally in Snake Eater is you go into a separate menu. It's called the cure menu. You cure yourself through that. So let's say you have a bullet wound, right? You have to first dig the bullet out. You have to use a suture kit, and you have to disinfect it, and then you're cured, right? And you put a bandage on it, and then you're cured, right? That's way too cumbersome, and it takes way too long and takes too much time and control away from the players. That's going to be a common theme in this video. I want to see that type of stuff updated. I do want to see a cure menu of some sort, but like I said, there are so many other survival games now in 2023 that you can take inspiration from. And there's even one in the Metal Gear series that I know if I mentioned, I'm going to get downvoted to hell, but they could take a lot of inspiration from even their own system in Metal Gear Survive. So another thing that they could take inspiration from Survive and from the Phantom Pain is the way to gather the different ways, the different remedies. So for those of you guys who don't know, there's cold medicine. There's like a splint if you have like a broken arm or leg or something that you can find. They're called medicinal herbs, right? You can find them scattered across Selino Yarsk, and the way to acquire them is you have to find them, obviously, and then you have to shoot at them with any type of weapon, or you can stab them with a knife. They disintegrate, they turn into a ration-like icon. You pick that ration-like icon up, and then they're in your inventory. That is also something that's very antiquated, something that they can change, and something that they've already changed. In the Phantom Pain, as you guys know if you've played it, you can go around picking herbs, hold square, takes half a second, and then you have that herb, right? That's definitely the way to do it going forward, in my opinion, for medicinal herbs and any mushrooms or anything like that present in Snake Eater. And there's plenty of them, even in the original game. Animals, obviously, you should hunt them. You should shoot them. That just makes sense, right? Maybe the way you acquire the meat is different, or you don't have to, again, wait for it to disintegrate and then you pick up the ration-like icon. They can keep that. That's not a huge intrusion, and it kind of makes more sense for the animals. But for herbs, I want to see quicker, more modern ways to gather them, and just, things being less intrusive. Saying that now, the biggest change I think that people aren't going to like, that I personally want to see myself, is less intrusion from the codec calls, and change the way that codecs work entirely. So there was a mock-up I saw a couple of years ago that someone recorded. It was in the Phantom Pain, but they went to an environment where it looked kind of like it could be Snake Eater. And they did like a mock-up of how codecs could work in Snake Eater nowadays. This was before the remake got announced, obviously. And it was actually a really good idea. So you guys know your iDroid in the Phantom Pain. You can listen to Intel. You can call Ocelot or Kaz, right, without any sort of interruption to your gameplay or minimal interruption. And then you can listen to what they're saying or listen to what the tape is saying without any intrusion on your gameplay, right? You can go about your business. You can go from point A to B and keep doing your thing, keep sneaking around while you're listening to Intel. That's definitely the way that they should implement codecs into Delta, in my opinion, is have some sort of like transparent or, thing up on the top left where you can see who's speaking. You have their little icon, paramedic or Major Zero. They're speaking. You see their icon just like in the original game. They're saying it's actually typed out. You can see it, you can read it, but you're also hearing it and playing the game at the same time. Because I love Metal Gear and I love codec calls, and I think that's a huge reason why people love them, and one of the most iconic aspects of them are those codec calls. But I do think the way that they're implemented need to be updated, especially for this remake, for modern audiences. There's too much loss of control the way that they work originally, in my opinion. Again, this might be sacrilege for a lot of people, but I do think that the least amount of intrusion that they include in this game, the better for modern audiences. Like I said, I'm fine with it. I can always go back and play Sneak Eater and not get annoyed by any of these things, but I'm just saying these are the things that I want to see, and I think will help the game be successful, be a successful remake if they implement them, right? So just long story short, update the menus. It's very cumbersome to have to open up a separate menu, go to your equipment menu, go to your weapon menu, then select in that menu what weapons you want or don't want, right? It takes way too much time. They could just have it so if you pick up a weapon, say you pick up an M60 or something like a machine gun, and you have the AK and you have the SVD, you have them all, and you can just hold the D-pad to the left or to the right, for example, and then cycle through them all, right? While also not pausing the game. It's way less intrusive. It's way quicker. People can get back to playing or continue playing, right? It's the way to do it. It's the way that modern games work nowadays. I don't like this having to go into menus and shuffling things around. I don't think people would like that at all. So last thing, apart from all of that menu stuff, is to revamp some of the boss fights and some of the way that the camouflage system works. So again, starting with the camouflage system, make it so you can change camouflage on the fly with minimal intrusion to gameplay, and also balance out some of the camouflages. For those of you guys that don't know, because you're not, super hardcore Metal Gear fan, or you're not like a speedrunner or something like that, some of the camouflages in this game actually break the game in a lot of different ways. One of the main things in this game is the stamina system, right? It was a very early iteration of a survival game. So the stamina system is meant to be something that you should actively monitor, right? But what does the stamina system do? What happens if you don't have stamina? If Snake doesn't have stamina, if it's running out? Well, the main thing is that when you aim a weapon in first person view, Snake's aim is all over the place. His hands are all shaky. You can't really like fix on something. His hands are just way too shaky from being fatigued, right? There's a camouflage that you get very early on in the game after the Ocelot fight. If you take him out non-lethally, you get what's called the animal camouflage. And what the animal camouflage does is completely trivializes the stamina system, because if you're wearing that, you could be at 0 stamina and your aim is still immaculate. Snake's hands or arms don't shake at all. So that's pretty much the entire stamina system, just completely and utterly trivialized by camouflage. Stuff like that needs to be balanced. I do like the camouflage system, obviously. I think it's a really cool idea, and I guess it's not too big of a deal if you don't know these crazy things about the game. But that camouflage in particular, I think, is the most egregious example. Now, going back to the actual boss fights themselves, most of them are fine. And I think that a lot of them test different aspects of your abilities in MGS3. Like, for example, the Ocelot fight that I just mentioned is obviously a test of your aim, a test of your reaction time, and a test of you being able to switch through your weapons quickly and reload quickly. And, going on to the pain and, that fight being kind of the same thing of like being able to switch to grenades to blast the hornets off of himself. So then he exposes, his weakness and you can shoot him, and you know what I mean? Being able to shuffle through around and deal with different mechanics at the same time. Most of them are fine. The most egregious boss fight that I think needs to be completely revamped is the Shagohod fight. That fight is just super dull. It's super boring. All you're doing is you're standing on that side cart with Eva on her motorcycle. You're going around in a huge circle, in a huge loop around the Shagohod. You're shooting the tread, and then you're trying to shoot the back of essentially the Shagohod's head, if you could call it that. Just rinse and repeat for like 5 minutes, and it's super boring. Same thing with the fight with Volgin right after that. There's a portion of it where it's literally just shooting the tread, shooting Volgin in the head with an SVD. Shooting the tread, shooting Volgin in the head with an SVD. Shooting the tread, shooting Volgin in the head with the SVD. And it's super boring. It's not inspired at all. So they need to revamp stuff like that. The other thing, it's not really a boss fight, but the escape with Eva when you're in that side cart and you're leaving Groznygrad, that whole section goes on for entirely way too long. Like, it's cool the first time you play it. I'm sure a lot of you guys love that whole sequence, but it goes on for entirely way too long. It's not very engaging at all. Again, there's camouflages that you can wear that completely trivialize that. You don't even have to shoot at anybody, really. It just completely breaks the game. So those few fights, those few sequences that I mentioned need to be definitely need to be changed, in my opinion. But other than that, I mean, you can't really change a fight as iconic as the end. You know, you can't change a fight as iconic as like the Fury or, um, like I mentioned, the Pain. Like most of the fights are okay. The Sorrow, like you can't change that type of stuff, right? But I do think there is some potential to make the fights better. Some of the fights, to make them more engaging, more challenging in different ways, right? But that's it for me, you guys. Those are my top changes that I want to see to the game personally. If there's something I missed, if there's something that, you know, is at the very top of your list that I didn't mention, please, please, please mention it in the comments. I'd love to see your guys' thoughts. I'd love to start some discussion with you guys, and see what you guys have to say. Once again, you guys, thank you so much for your support. Planning to make another video probably this week. I already have some ideas for the next video. So if it's not out this week, it'll definitely be out next week. Remember, I'm trying to make one video a week at the very least. If it's an especially news heavy week, I will react to that and react accordingly. So once again, you guys, thank you guys so much for hanging around, watching this video. Please let me know in the comments below what you want to see, what changes you want to see, and I will see you guys in the next video.